Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of our podcast with Modern Minds. Today we're going to discuss about some exciting topic, right? Where AI is becoming an essential part of how organizations work. But it's important to understand that not every problem requires an AI solution. So today we would like to break down when AI truly adds value and why data quality is critical and how organizations can make responsible decisions about adopting AI. So Priya, I just wanted to touch base on this, right? Like when to use AI and does every problem need AI? So I know you've been working with few organizations. So have you seen some instances and how would you like to explain about it?
Yes, Ram. Thank you so much for the session today. Yeah, so nowadays AI is becoming like it's a bit of a hype. So everyone want to move to any AI, irrespective of Copilot or any AI technology. They invest more without even understanding that most of the solutions actually don't require AI, right? So when we plan for an AI on a SMB or a SMC scale, I always suggest that what is the problem it's solving, right? So what is the specific problem it's solving, and do I really need AI? Right. So, for example, if there is a repetitive task like automation, like if any data falls in the SharePoint and you want it in an email, that can be done with the Power Automate, which you already have. So that is one of the small example, but we need to check on what is the problem it's solving. And also the other thing I think is that organizations to need to check on the data quality and what are the data is being measured or monitored, and what is the output I'm going to get, right? So if we segregate this platform, right, so instead of jumping directly into the AI, we need to go with the AI approach. So if I really need AI, and because organizations are investing more on the tools and which can be done with the existing data, like if they maintain the quality of the data, they can then adopt for the right specific tools which they need to, right? So when talking about the data quality, what do you think, Ram, or how do you think that AI is do you don't you think it's a real hype and people are just jumping into it?
Yeah, I have to completely agree with you, right? I think it's trying to catch a faster train, right? Like people just wanted to be on the train and then rather than thinking what's the destination looks like. So agree with your point where using AI when the problem involves patterns, right? Like that are difficult or time consuming for people to detect, or say some classifications or predictions, or you need some kind of summarization or anomaly detection, then you can go for Copilot or AI solution, right? Say someone is trying to analyze like 50,000 customer feedback comments. That's a very good use case for AI, or doing a forecasting of demand based on sales trends, right? So these would fit into AI. But again, not all problems require AI, as we touched upon. So if the problem is something solvable reliably by a simple rule or a workflow or a power automation, right, that it could be a better. So, or if the volume of data is too small or inconsistent, then AI is not going to help there, right? And AI should not be simply because it is trending. Rather, it should be more of measurable, as you pointed out. Say, I'm implementing like an AI solution, and I'm gonna invest a lot of money on effort into that. And if you're not gonna achieve the ROI out of it, right, then what's the point of doing such a large investment and spending time on that? So definitely not a case where the data quality or the ROI is not up to the mark. To answer your question in terms of data quality, that's the key for any AI solution to work. So let's take Copilot as an example, right? So we all been in the mess of SharePoint, right? We have a lot of data coming in from SharePoint from ages, and then people store it for a longer period of time as well. What I've seen with organizations is that they just dive into AI or Copilot without doing that cleanup on the SharePoint initially. So I think Microsoft have now come up with a lot of nice reports and the tools like SharePoint Advanced Management, which you can leverage to do a complete analysis of your data before diving into implementing something, right? Uh, have you seen anything in your experience where people dive in too soon into like a co-pilot or an AI solution without doing a proper data strategy?
Yes, that is what many organizations are doing, right? So the data quality is more important. So let's say, even if you purchase an AI solution, how it works, it basically checks the patterns, checks the data. When your data is not right, whatever the output you're getting, it is going to be a, in other words, we can say it's going to be a fake data, right? Or it is kind of a hallucinated data where it's of no use, so it is not going to be appropriate. So the best thing is we always need to concentrate on the data quality. So let's say if data profiling, like how clean is your data, the best is your outcome. So I always insist that it's more important for the organizations to spend more time on data profiling or cleaning up the data, because you can train an AI, but what if your data quality is poor, right? So it is basically kind of garbage in and garbage out. So there's no big changes you can make, and you cannot rely on it for any big decisions, because it's definitely going to be a wrong insight, or it could be a flawed recommendation. So yeah, as you said, the SharePoint Advanced Management, right? So SharePoint Advanced Management, it has a lot of things which they basically monitor, and also they suggest the best practices for high quality of data, right? So for example, I can talk about the versioning, or checking on the rules, like if your metadata is it exposed, or even specific site level governance you can check. So all these things helps you to first monitor your data, check how your data is, and if there is any flaws, we can fix it. Other example, like with the governance, you can you can integrate SAM with the DSPM, and all these brings us the insight, or how bad or how good is my data. So some organizations which deal with a huge number of data, yes, you can go with the implementation and the assessment side by side, because it's I would say it's really merely impossible to clean completely and then go with the implementation. It's going to take a lot of time, but data quality is more important, and it has to be continuously measured. It is not like it's a journey, right? So it's not like I'm implementing today, I'm done. No, it has to be complete, I mean, measured day by day, and you have to keep improving the data quality. So that's where this SharePoint management tools, all these gives fantastic reports where we can check where am I lagging in, right? So for example, the public sites, I've seen a SharePoint site, the site is restricted, but there are few datas which are accessible. So those kind of small thing which are exposed to the outside world, those can be fetched upon, and we can figure it out, and we can reach out to the site owners to check, is this actually required, or did you give permission by mistake? All these things are creating a big change in how this Copilot implementation works. So maintaining the data quality as well. Yeah. So
Yeah,
other thing.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can absolutely resonate with what you said, right? I think another thing which you pointed out very well is that we cannot wait for all the data cleanup to be done, right? Which is absolutely not possible. Like people have terabytes and petabytes of data lying there, and then if you go back to the owners of the sites asking them to clean up all the permissions by file, then it's going to be a never ending activity. So you have to find that balance in terms of when you say, okay, which is the right moment for you to turn on Copilot. And I think that's where the lot of controls which Microsoft has given would actually help people, right? Where you can restrict people from accessing agents or publishing agents, definitely, or even to studio, right? Like how you can grant those controls granularly and then get into baby steps of getting into enabling Copilot. And again, one more thing which I would like to add is having sensitivity labels on your files, permissioning it properly. So making those smaller things mandatory, so people know that they have to keep documenting and labeling the files properly, right? That would also be a better approach.
That's right.
And then have you seen instances where people have multiple data sources, right? Like where for example, they might have their internal like a ticketing tool, and they might have a knowledge base articles stored in that, right? and then there'll be SharePoint sites, and then there'll be OneDrive where the files would be stored, and some SAP and other things coming in. So data spread wide across, right? So that would also have that, like, data inconsistency issues. So have you come across anything, and how do you deal with such scenarios, and would your advice beyond that?
Yes. So, like for example, if you are working with an agent, right? So you can bring a lot of data sources in there where it can be from different sources. But the thing is, what I feel is like the data ownership relies with the team who's actually working on that data, right? Because it is not only the responsible of the person who's designing the agent, be it an M360, I mean, who the co-pilot person or the co-pilot administrator. I always feel it is the responsibility of the respective teams, right? So, for example, if I'm involving multiple teams to bring up a multi-agent scenario, so they should define their goal, and they should also have a proper data from where we are going to pick it up and how it is going to get integrated with the agent, right? So if you take in the architectural point of view, we call it as a different layer, so where my data is getting fit in this layer. So, and who are all having the access to that? So that's when the data ownership plays a very important role. So that's why we have the role based access control and the sensitivity labels comes into place, so that even on the compliance part of you, right? Like we can concentrate, even if your agent is holding the data from multiple data sources. When these things are sorted out, my agent is going to actually solve the purpose for what I'm designing. I've seen scenarios where people say that even though it is part of the different team, they think it's always responsibility of the co-pilot team who is deploying it. But that's not the case, because you need to make sure that your data, because we help them in integrating, we help them in establishing the workflow and automating stuff, but the actual data relies with them, and they need to figure out who will have access to it and what kind of data needs to be injected. So that's when this I feel that's when this co-pilot adoption team, they should have a regular meetings and get this done. So what do you think from your point of view, Ram, about
Yeah,
this?
I think absolutely agree in terms of the ownership of the data lies with the team who holds the data rather than the data office team, or it could be the co-pilot team who rolls out, right? And then that's where the data governance or the data office team comes into the mix, right? I think you have to acknowledge their governance concerns upfront, right? Like if at all there are any within the organization, I think the deployment team has to acknowledge that and probably start explaining or built-in security and compliance models, which we talked about, right? A lot of controls and the procedures that can be done to make Copilot successful. So probably establish that model with your data governance or office team, and have a off like a joint review of data readiness and high risk areas, right? Which you talked about, like sensitive information. So can you block Copilot from looking into sensitive information? So what are your company's data sets which you think are sensitive and shouldn't be exposed to AI, right? So decide that set of data and then have the configurations in place to start blocking it. The fourth one would be like position governance as a prerequisite, like, and don't look it as a blocker, right? Like as I said, you have to work hand in hand with that team to see what the blockers are, and then have that as a prerequisite to make Copilot into the next steps. And then the last one would be to commit continuous monitoring, right? And then auditability and transparency, because that's what the security or the data team would love to have, right? Because you can spin up thousands of agents, but what's happening on those agents and what is the data set which is on the back of the agents? That's something which everyone would be keen to understand, right? So I think that's where you have to have that continuous commitment of monitoring and transparency of these agents. And also that brings us to another topic of having responsible AI, right? I think which we talked about in our previous podcast as well, right? Where the team who's trying to build a solution should ensure that they keep in mind some of the responsible AI questions which the data governance team can come up with. Uh, can you, come up with like some of the top things which you would like as a data office team, right, to be part of your checklist for responsible AI? I think it would be helpful for someone who is trying to put together for their organization.
Yeah. So when we talk about responsible AI, right? So as that statement defines, when you're handling any AI systems, you should be doing with kind of responsibility and accountability, right? Because yes, AI is autonomous, but still we humans are managing that, right? So we should be ethical, or and we should be very fair on the decision how we are making. So I would say that we spoke about the privacy and the security, where every data needs to be encrypted, and they need to comply with either GDPR or HIPAA, respective, like based on what kind of field they are into, they need to comply with those. But apart from that, I feel is that the transparency, right? So transparency is nothing but like when we coordinate with different teams, right? So how clear are we designing, for example, if we take Copilot, how clear are we designing the prompts? So how my agent is going to be transparent, and so that I don't have a hallucinated data, right? So whatever the data I'm getting from the agent is maybe it couldn't be 100% accurate, but it is close towards like it is close towards the accuracy. So how I can maintain that is only when I have the proper governance and the data quality in place, right? So when I talk about responsible AI, it is the role of the respective team to test any agent in various scenarios. Like it can be edge cases, like instead of directly implementing it on the production, you monitor. Because what I've heard is this hallucination thing, right? Unless and until a specific person from that specific team identifies that, it it cannot be, it remains unnoticed, and people go on with those predictions. So it is very important to test it, and based on that testing, you need to also define your governance policies. So if you think that okay, these things are not required, like these are the not these are the responses I don't expect my team to receive, then you define your governance policies based on that. So you restrict the governance policy, and you make sure that your agent is working as expected, right? Also, I think is that frequent auditing check is required on these agents. So now, since we are not only designing a co-pilot, right? We are going on the extensibility, like we are integrating with GitHub. We are doing all the extensibility options available. So it is the responsible of each and every, being it a developer, the administrator, or the architect. Everyone need to work together to bring this, right? So the control sharing part, so that is more important. So how much ever you control the data, that's when you are bringing your agent to work as per expected. So that is my point. So what do you think about this, Ram?
I think you covered very much everything what I was thinking, right? But maybe as a community from Modern Minds, we can summarize and then probably say, okay, these are the top 5 things which anyone in an organization should think of before rolling out an AI. And I think two of them which we already talked, right? What is the problem AI is system is intended to solve, right? And is the AI the right approach? So that would be the first question, right? I think you can go ahead and solve most of your problems there itself. Like is Copilot or the internal AI solutions the right one, or do you think some power automations or like something like a feature within the system can help you doing that? So that would be my first question. I think the second one is again the data accuracy which we talked about, right? Like is data used accurate, is it representative and collected with proper rights and consent? So which talks about all the security controls and the permissions which we ran through in our podcast so far. The third one is like, have we assessed or mitigated risks or bias or potential harm to any user group? So one typical example is like if an AI solution, for example, we have seen scenarios AI is being used for taking interviews, right? Or looking into like a pay model of a company, right, or bonuses or compensation. So these are cases where you shouldn't be using AI, right? That should be a human intervention. So please ensure that there is no bias or potential harm to a specific set of people by using this solution. So that
Yeah.
would be my third point. I think the fourth one is is AI system transparent, right? Like with clear explanations and human oversight where needed. Again, a beautiful point which you touched base, right? Like hallucination, until someone there is like a human oversight to understand what's the solution or the reasoning behind that. We will not even understand whether AI is giving you the right solution. So we have to have that clear expectations and human control wherever it is required. And the final one would be like our security, safety, and monitoring controls in place for the entire life cycle of the model, again, which you touched base, right? Like we have those controls in place, we have those governance in place, but are we doing it and are we continuously regulating it, right? So those are some top five questions I think everyone should have it in their questionnaire before implementing or discussing about an AI model.
Yes, Ram. That's exactly the right thing. You have summarized it very well. But just last 2 points I would like to mention is you mentioned that human needs to be intervened. That's right. So we can have it as like human in the loop, where we treat Copilot as a assistant, and it's not the final decision maker. So the decision maker is always the humans, and they need to intervene just to make sure the data is right. So when they are dealing with critical data, and the other thing is feedback loop, right? So these two loops are more important because feedback loop is always to collect the users feedback on how it is improving their ecosystem, and then adjust your workflows or your prompts or your governance based on that. And one last thing is, I would say, training and awareness, right? So every day the Copilot is changing and a lot of new features they keep adding. So training and continuous training, though it's a self-based training, or have a training team recruited and get this done. So these are the things I would also say it's more important, because only when we learn we can bring the best out of all these things. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a very good conversation, right, to understand the overall when to choose AI, because we are trying to see the cutting through the noise of AI that everyone is going through now. So it was a very good discussion. I think with that we will, I mean, end this episode, and we will continue this conversation in our next episode where we will take a deeper look at the governance and the full life cycle management of AI agents. And thanks, Priya, for joining.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.